So in this project, you will be learning to develop a simple calculator. You will create the user interface of it as seen here, and you will be doing the event handling part and the API discussions, and we'll be doing it in a very practical manner. So this is the coding you will be learning in this project, the coding, and this will be the output. So in the output you will enter, you'll be able to enter the numbers, the user, and then the user will be able to click the plus, multiply, clear, and do the other buttons as well as exit. So we are doing this in a very practical manner. So let's see how to do it now. And let's do it now. So the lesson is GUI development lesson 2, event handling. So the focus is on event handling, and we'll be using Apache NetBeans version 11.3 for the practicals and Oracle Java developer docs for referencing, right? So let's look at the lesson, right? So in this session you will learn, you'll continue to build the GUI program you built in lesson 1, the previous lesson, and we'll be looking into event handling packages, AWT event, java.aw event, and then when you do event handling you will use a interface called action listener. So if you don't know about interfaces, have a look at one of our previous videos in this series about Java interfaces. So you have to use a standard interface called action listener, which is in java.aw event package, and the theory basically you will be, what we'll be doing is you'll have to override a method called action perform. So that's how you do the event handling for a button, let us say. And then once you do that, for the button, or let us say if it's for a button, then you have to call a method called add action listener, and at the action listener you build in the previous point, right, in the previous bullet point. So you have to call add action listener and then pass object which is implementing that action listener interface, right? That's how it is. And then the practical code examples. So the lesson plan is to continue the GUI development and make a calculator, and then we'll be using a different layout compared to the previous lesson where it was flow layout. So in this we will to learn another layout, we'll use grid layout, and then we will do the GUI event handling using standard package java.aw event, and then we'll be doing the programming of the event handling. For that, as I said earlier, you have to implement the action listener interface, then override the action perform method. Then once you do that, then you have to call the add action listener method for the component where you want to add the listener, and then you create object of the class or whatever where you override the action listener action performed method, and you pass that object into the add action listener method. So let's see how you do it. So the concept behind a GUI with event handling is you create the GUI first, and then you add the event handling for the components like buttons, menus, and stuff like that. And for that you have to create the event handling code, right? For that you have to implement the relevant interface. So I think it's something important if I put something here, right? So for you to write the event handling code, you have to find out and override the relevant event handling interface. Now this is very important, right? So you have to find out it from the API, right? You have to find out. So for you to do this, okay, from the API, from the Java API, you have to find out and you have to find out the relevant. You have to find out the relevant event handling interface. You have to find out the relevant event handling interface and override the method related to the event which you want to capture. So that's what you do. So from the API you will have to find out the relevant event handling interface, and then you have to override the method related to the event which you are, that's what you have to do, and then attach this code to the component. So the whatever the code you are writing here, you have to attach it to the component. So something very important mention here is that you have to find the relevant event handling interface from the API. So in the Java API you got different event handling interfaces, right? So let us put it here. So there are different event handling interfaces in Java API, right? So we'll say event handling interfaces available in the Java API. So the Java API has some interfaces, right? So if you don't know about interfaces, once again look at our one of previous lectures about Java interfaces. So what are these event handling interfaces found, right? For that you have to refer the Java API. So let me do like so. There's one interface called action listener, right? And there are many, right? So let me show it like so. Action listener is one of the interfaces, right? And its super interface is event listener, right? So there's a parent interface for it called event listener. So under that you got action listener, you got, let me see, mouse listeners, right? So I got the important list. So I'm going to copy this and put it into a note for you, right? And I'm going to quickly take few things. So action listener, I'm going to select a few important ones, right? Adjustment listener, AWT event listener. There are lots of listeners, but I'm going to select a few, right? Where you would most frequently override, right? So let me select a few where you would most frequently look into, right? Item, see, key listener, that's another thing. Like for example, if you are dealing with key press and stuff like that, and let me make mouse input listener, maybe, or just we'll go with the mouse listener and mouse motion listener. I will show them in a little while, right? Mouse wheel listener. Okay, let's take a few more. If, something text listener, a few, right? So window listener is another one, right? So let's take the text listener as well, and let's also take, you can override any of these. So window listener, I'm just selecting a few, right? Just selecting a few, and say window state listener, right? So let's take a few, right? So these are some of the standard interfaces, event handling interfaces found in the Java API. So standard, right, available in the Java API. So if I list them, these are some of the standard. So let us look what are these. So action listener, what does it have? So if you look at action listener taken from this, and then if I take it into say key listener, so I'm opening one by one just to show you something very important. So as developers who are as viewers in this channel who want to become developers, look how we do things, and you should frequently refer to the API. Remember that you have to frequently refer, like I'm doing. Mouse listener, that's where you will become one of the greatest developers, right? So I'm looking for JKLM and mouse listener, right? And mouse motion listener and text listener, right? I'm just opening. So these are interfaces, right? So you should know what are interface. If not, look at our previous video. Windows name, Windows status. So I open the few. So let's see. So action listener, basically it's an interface and it has some methods action perform. So this is used for things like if you want to tackle things like button click. Then key listener is another interface where if you want to tackle keyboard key press events, right? If you want to, so mouse listener is where you tackle, let us say, mouse click, right? And mouse entered, exited, kind of. Mouse motion listener is where like mouse dragging or mouse moving. If you want to capture any events, that's it. Text listener is like if a text value got changed, right? So in a text box, if a text value change, you can trigger this, so or it gets triggered automatically, right? Window listener, where window is closed, likewise window is open, where you can do. And there's window state listener when the window state change, and we can have a look at in detail, right? So I just listed the so why did I show these interfaces once again? Because the concept is, from the API, as I said, you have to find the relevant event handling interface. So you have to find one what you want. If you are dealing with mouse activities, you have to either use mouse listener or mouse motion listener, which is relevant one. If you are dealing with click events like a button click, it's action listener. If you are dealing with key press, it's key listener. Likewise, you have to find and override the method related to the event. So for example, if it's a button click, you have to override from action listener, you have to override action performed. If it's a key press, from the key listener you have to override key press. if it's a mouse click, from the mouse listener interface you have to override mouse click. So that's what I have mentioned here, right? And once you make that code, you have to attach this code to the component. For example, if it's a mouse click, if it's for a button, so the code you generate here, you have to now attach it to the button. Or if it's let us say a mouse move event on the form, you have to attach it to the form. If it's like a key press event on a text box, then you have to attach this code to the text box likewise. That's the idea behind that, right? Okay, so now let's go and do the practical. So